I think this industry has come a really long way, and with such a strong contribution to India's economy, 30% of the world market, and IT and ITS services together, I'm told, contribute close to 8% of Indian GDP, 38% of the services exports, and obviously it employs a large amount of employment in the provides a large amount of employment in the country, and has been one of the most successful and the poster child industries over last decade and a half. But obviously now the complexion seems to be changing. There is more competition, there is more spread, business itself is changing, the asks and demands are different, the costs are different. So Sandeep, I wanted to first ask you, and how do you crystal gaze into the future, and how do you see the trends changing, when you see things like verticalization, you see things like specialization, you see things like geo-spread. So how do you see the whole complexion changing? You've been a veteran, you've seen it all through.
So Rajesh, this is a very broad question. I'll try to kind of summarize this. Well, the first trend, of course, is let's look at geography. There are now multiple geographies which have different niches in the BPO space. So let's look at voice, for example. As some of you will know, that in terms of the number of people, Philippines has a larger share of the voice market than India. Why? Because their accent is supposedly better, they understand the US culture, etc. So therefore, there are markets in different parts of the world. I gave 2 examples in Asia. There are examples in Latin America, for example. Peru, for Spanish speaking, is a great market because it's competitive, it has the right accent, and therefore a lot of work from either Spain or the Hispanic work in the US is taken. So that's one aspect. Second, come to the nature of the business. Obviously, earlier companies did look at cost. Businesses have become far more mature. Is cost a factor? It is still a factor. I'm not denying that. But there are many, many other factors which are probably superseding the cost factor. What clients are looking at is how can organizations, how can partners like us and people sitting on this panel make a difference to their customers? In other words, how can they, for example, improve customer experience? So today there is a term called Net Promoter Score, is how your customers will rate the delivery. And that is very important. So clients are coming to us and says, look, our Net Promoter Score is X, we want you to raise it to Y, and we will incentivize you on how you raise the Net Promoter Score. Secondly, the clients are looking at us to add value by saying, look, you've been running this business for a long time, can you add value? And therein, the point of domain expertise and specialization. So if we are running a business in healthcare, or we're running a business in travel or in banking, we are supposed to be the experts. So it's not an age of generalization, but an age where you have to have domain knowledge and you've got to contribute, you've got to add value to the business. The buyers have become mature, the clients have become mature, and therefore they're looking at you to make a difference to their business, either by improving customer experience, either by giving value addition, having domain expertise, or making a difference to their bottom line, what we call their EBIT or their EPS. So that's how the industry is evolving, Rajesh.
So thank you, Sandeep. So Rohit, I wanted to ask you, what in your mind is the sort of the crux and the the fulcrum on which you see the whole change happening, and all the audience in this room should sort of worry about and see how they're going to evolve for the future.
Sure. Let me talk to you about how I see the fulcrum and how this shift is taking place. I think the shift is taking place in the end consumer behavior. It's taking place with all of us in terms of how we as consumers ultimately buy and transact on services and goods. Our decision making is changed. It's moved from the physical world to the virtual world. It's moved from a mass production kind of an environment to a highly customized and individual focused environment. And the speed of change has collapsed dramatically. So for all of us as consumers and as customers, that has changed. What that has done is our clients, which are the corporations who serve the end customers, their behavior has changed. And what they are doing is they're adapting very, very rapidly to this changing behavior of the end customer to be able to provide services and to be able to compete in the marketplace in a much more effective way. And therefore, their expectations of us in the BPM industry, that's changed. And so the whole question is, how does the industry change from trying to be the lowest cost provider to being the highest value provider? And how do you make that journey and you move from cost to innovation? And I think that's what's exciting and fascinating about this industry, because when you talk about innovation and you talk about value, then it's a boundless opportunity out there. And with the globalization that's taking place, with the digitalization that's taking place, it's a huge, fantastic opportunity.
Yeah. So on that note, I think you're right. I think the moment of truth really is where your customer touches their company, right? So I think change from a complete cost model to where the value is. And on that note, I wanted to ask you, Ashok, where do you see the influx of all this new technology? I mean, it's the buzz of the town, digital, social, analytics, mobile and cloud, right? So how is this impacting, and what do you see the role that will play, how the whole landscape changes as we go forward?
I see significant growth in this industry. I believe the BPM industry is in the cusp of growth. And this is led by the digital revolution. Social, mobile, big data, analytics, cloud, and the fifth element, which we are focusing on significantly, artificial intelligence and robotics, is driving a lot of growth. Customers are trying to leverage these 5 technologies to reimagine their end-to-end business process. One of the data points which I want to share is the entire BPM industry today is about 150 billion globally. But these 5 digital forces, according to a study done by Gartner, wherein they interviewed about 2,000 odd CXOs, the market size of this, the spend on these 5 areas will be close to 260 billion by 2020. So you can see the scale of growth which is out there. So the opportunity is tremendous, and it is for us to invest in these technologies and bring the best value for our customers.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, Ravi, how do you see the whole area of specialization? Now, there are 2 parts to this. One part is the verticalization, right? And the other part is what type of processes and work we are doing. This whole myth of, Rohit mentioned the cost-based model and large scale. If I look at the number for India, there are about 15,000 companies, and top 11 companies do 40% of that business, right? So I think will it move the value creation in some way? Will it give a larger opportunity to the long tail in the process? How do you see these trends impacting?
So from my perspective, there are multiple things happening. So the first is about the type of work that is actually being done. So if you look at it at one end, you have a lot more tailorization going on. So you have these simpler jobs becoming simpler. Right? And at the other end, you have much more complex jobs being actually brought in. So both of these things are happening together. At the same time, in a completely different dimension, there is concentration of work happening, and also there is distribution of work happening, which means companies at one end for certain types of jobs are trying to get more and more people to do that kind of work in one location, whereas for other types of work, they're trying to go to other geographies. So if you kind of put this in a classic 2x2, you get these 4 dots. So there's a lot of replanning happening in the industry, where some companies are saying, look, I want to do work that is of higher value, and I want to do it in a distributed model. A little while ago, we were discussing, for example, in the procurement space. So I'm seeing that kind of nature happen. A second thing that is happening is disintermediation of certain types of work. So as a summary, there's work redistribution happening that we see based on 2 parameters. That is, tailorization, simplification of work, and in terms of more complex work, and distribution of work based on geography, that is concentration versus distribution. Plus, there are these innovative types of services that are actually occurring.